All the work I make is made on the potter's wheel. I use a range of different processes on the wheel, working with primarily white earthenware clays and some porcelains and some porcelainous clays as well. I find it so important when I'm working on the wheel to be adding enough compression, so that's when I'll be using the wooden ribs against the clay and a hand on the inside to compress the clay. And compressing the clay gives it sufficient strength, so when you're creating form within the pot, that it can withstand the kind of tension across the surface. If you use a lot of water and you throw your clay too fast, sometimes you can find that the clay loses some of its integral strength. So it's important for me to throw quite slowly, not use too much water, and use quite a lot of work on the rib. So when I'm working with the rib, you can often see I'm not just using it to lift and throw the clay, but I'm also using it to kind of push down back into the clay and give myself compression in the clay. With the neck that goes on there, I'll throw on the wheel in plastic clay, so I'll give the pot itself time to harden. The pot itself will be a firmish, soft clay moving towards leather hard. And timing is critical with the clay at that stage, because if you leave it too long, it means the soft clay and the hard clay may well crack and break. And if you do it too soon, the neck can collapse. I'll scratch and slip the neck of the pot where I'm going to make the join, both on the inside, underneath the rim, on the rim itself, and on the top of the rim. And then with the join that I make with the pot that goes on to be the neck, I'll throw that separately, just as quite a short, stubby little pot, really, tapering pot. Critically with that, it'll have a hole in the bottom, a small hole in the bottom, but not like a big shoulder, so I need to leave quite a lot of clay at the base there, and enough of that clay to roll round onto the inside of the rim, so that piece of clay that goes on as a join actually wraps right round the joint of that pot as well. Once I'm confident that they've joined together, then I'll start to throw that clay out, and so I'll throw with my fingers and take a lift up through that clay first of all, and then once I've got sufficient height on that, I'll use a throwing stick again on the inside to throw against and apply some pressure against it, so I get the length of neck that I want. And as you'll see, as that making progresses as well, I'll leave myself more thickness there at the end of making that pot, because I know I'll be turning away quite a lot into that neck at the next phase as the clay hardens. I love turning. The turning process can really help you define a form, and as that's such an important characteristic of my creative practice, defining and redefining and shaping form is something that I explore a lot and work with. I use probably heavier turning tools. I use kind of tools that I mostly make myself, which are out of 3/4 inch steel and different shaped heads on them, but usually ones with quite a rounded concave on them would be tools I'd start my turning with. As the turning progresses, I'll be using also very flexible metal kidneys, both steel ones and aluminium ones. And what I can get with them is a lot more definition and detail into my turning, and I find that that's, for me, is the best combination of tools to work with. I'll also then, as that progresses, bring more definition and more detail, and really kind of bring for me the kind of tension into the form, which is when I kind of I get quite excited about form when it starts feeling a bit dangerous, a bit like, can I go too far? I find my pots are the duller ones when they kind of seem a bit sedentary and heavy, but ones which are living on the edge are the ones which excite me the most. So it's kind of just pushing things a little bit further and creating that kind of definition into the form, which is so exciting. All my work is coated with very fine slips called terra sigillatas from the Roman sealed earth, I believe it means. and was very evident both on Greek ceramics and Roman ceramics. Once the clay is dry, the terra sigillatas are sprayed on the raw clay surface, so that it's not doesn't have a first firing. It's sprayed on when the clay is dry, and then after that fired in an electric kiln to about 950 degrees centigrade, and following that then it'll be one of the surface carbonisation processes, which are really quite simple processes where the work can just be fired in sawdust very slowly, maybe over 2 or even 3 days, or in saggers where they're in separate ceramic containers with the external heat source, and then that gives a very high, heavy carbonisation to the surface. And so quite, you've got quite a wide spectrum of potential surface qualities you can evolve through that. It's one thing as an artist, as a potter, to have an ambition of what your work is, but the joy is always when you hear people communicate to you what it means living with your work and what it means on that kind of day-to-day basis, and how they engage with it, and the sense that you kind of, when you hear that coming back to you about how people kind of lose themselves in the work sometimes, and kind of have that kind of engagement with the pots themselves, and you kind of think, yes, that's how I feel about making them.